Hey Emily, how are you doing, girl? It's Miguel. It's funny how I start a lot of my videos that way, saying those very same phrases. It just gets me started, I guess. I hope you're having a good day today so far. Today is the 27th of October. It is a Saturday, and it's definitely fall. It's a little chilly in this room. I have a feeling that this room is just kind of naturally chilly. I have a big window in it, and that especially when that window's in the shade in the morning, there's not a lot of sun coming through, and so it gets a little cool. And I've got my little sweater jacket on. Interesting how it's the same color as my dress shirt underneath. So I'm wearing gray on gray. I had an interesting breakfast today. I had rutabaga French fries. You may not be that familiar with rutabaga. Not a lot of people are, but rutabagas, like turnips, are sort of like a potato, but they have a peppery flavor. And I roasted some rutabaga French fries this morning for breakfast, and I liked it. I think I prefer baked potato French fries better, but it was neat to change it up a little bit and have a little rutabaga. What distinguishes rutabaga from potato flavor is there's this peppery flavor that comes along with the rutabaga. It's just a little bit more peppery. It's more like a radish flavor that's available in your French fry. They fry it up just like potato fries did when I roasted them in the oven, and they taste just as good with ketchup or mustard, just like regular French fries. One thing I thought was a little odd was that the French fries some of them seem to be still pretty firm, even after 35 minutes in the oven. So I'm not sure what the cause of that was. Maybe it had to do with the placement or the thickness of the rutabaga. I'm not sure. We'll see how that works out. I've also been enjoying a little bit of Chinese eggplant. Eggplants are that purple oblong fruit that's available that basically is called a vegetable. And it turns out that eggplants are pretty enjoyably flavored vegetables. They they have a nice subtle sweet flavor to them, which is a little bit surprising. Now, the eggplant is a very subtly flavored vegetable. It's so subtle that you may not even taste it if you're not really thinking about it. It's kind of funny. I hesitate when I say the word vegetable because I know that biologically it's a fruit. It's just like a tomato, right? Tomatoes have seeds and they're definitely fruiting bodies. Eggplants are exactly the same way. Oddly enough, though, when it comes to cooking, tomatoes and eggplants are considered vegetables. Isn't that odd how that is? I'm sure there's probably some explanation for that can be deduced by reading lots about the history of food and cooking. So today I'm feeling a little bit low energy. I've changed my workout routines a little bit. I'm now working out pretty much every day. I'm doing the same amount of workouts that I do per week. I'm just spreading out those workouts throughout the day, throughout many days. And so instead of just working out maybe 2 days a week, I'm splitting my workouts in half and distributing them over a course of 4 days. So I'm working out more frequently. But the workout intensity and the workout durations are the same as they were in previous weeks. And I'm just changing it up a little bit. We'll see how it works. I kind of like the idea of working out a little bit more regularly because, that habit I want to establish, and it's easier to establish a habit if you're basically compelled to do it every day. Instead of having these stops and starts, or I've had stops and starts for a day or 2 days. You know. So let's see. Well, I guess I'll start by reading a little bit from the book Peaceful Living, and we'll see what that has to say. Like I said, today's the 27th of October, and the quote is a Malay proverb. Clapping with the right hand only will not produce a noise. So I'll just say that again. This is a Malay proverb, and the quotation is, clapping with the right hand only will not produce a noise. Now, I don't know if you know what this quote is all about, but it referenced a different quote. It's a Zen quote, and the Zen quote is, what is the sound of one hand clapping? That's a very Zen quotation, isn't it? It's essentially a contradiction. And this Malay proverb essentially answers that Zen question. And the answer is that if you clap with the right hand only, you will not produce a noise. Anyway, let's see what Mary Mackenzie has to say in the passage. And we'll start off with her subtitle, Creating Joy in Our Lives. Compassionate communication values the concept of only doing things that bring us joy. Sometimes when people first learn this concept, they take this literally and say things like, I'll attend the meeting if I feel joy about it at the time. Or, I know we had plans, but I just didn't feel joy about going once the time arrived. When people say things like this or act in this manner, they're missing a key aspect of compassionate communication, the importance of valuing everyone's needs equally. I can feel joy if I follow through with my plans to meet my own need for fulfilling my obligations or contributing to my friend's life. If I think I'd like to change our plans, it is important for me to consider the other person's needs as well. The only effective way to do this is to ask, Joan, I know we made plans to go to the movies tonight, but I'm beat. Would it be just as fun for you to go tomorrow night? It is important to only do things that bring us joy. It is just as important to value everyone's needs equally. The minute we value our needs more than others, we erect walls in our relationships. And the passage, the thought for the day is, be aware of times when you value your own needs more than other people's today, and choose a different approach that values them equally. Okay, this is a point in Mary Mackenzie's philosophy that I disagree with. I don't think it's important to necessarily value everyone's needs equally. I don't know where she gets these ideas. So I think of valuing needs in sort of like a pyramid shape where you're at the top. I think it's very appropriate for individuals to value their own needs more than anyone else's needs. That's entirely appropriate. If you are not for you, who else will be for you? So, and then as when you are at the pinnacle in terms of meeting your own needs, then then comes the next level, is meeting the needs of the people who you love, right? And those might be your family and your close friends. And so first you value your own needs, then you value the needs of the people who you love, and then friends, and then acquaintances, and then lastly strangers. So, I think that's entirely appropriate in terms of this need pyramid about what needs to get met at what priority. This idea that you have to meet everyone's needs equally doesn't make any sense to me. And I'm not sure where Mary McKinsey is going with this idea. I know she has this idea about equality. And I think people should be equal under the law. People should be equal, certainly in principle, when it comes to decision making, amongst most things. Equality and fairness and justice is appropriate in those instances. Though when it comes to how you expend your own energy, your own personal energy, I think it's entirely appropriate for you to meet your own needs first. You are the primary person in your own life. And honestly, it can't be any other way. I mean, let's say I was taking care of, say, my elderly parents. If I started caring for their needs to drink water, the same as my needs to drink water, well, I guess that makes more sense. But I certainly couldn't prioritize their needs above mine. Because I would need water too, that's for sure. And food. Or else I wouldn't be able to care for them, right? I would be too depleted, too dehydrated to care for them. Anyway. There's another idea in here that sort of struck me as interesting. The communication, they say communication, she says compassionate communication values the concept of only doing things that bring us joy. Again, I'm really not sure where Mary is getting this stuff. How she speaks about compassionate communication as if she's an authority on it. It's just a communication technique. It's not necessarily a set of, like, a religion or a set of values that is sort of wide-ranging. At least not in my mind. It's not a philosophical system or a moral or ethical system. For me, it's more of a communication system. And it has some elements of ethics in it. But this whole idea of only doing things that bring you joy, I don't know, here's the thing. As a human being, you won't be able to only do things that bring you joy. It's tough love. And the reason is because there are a lot of tasks and activities that people really need to do that really that aren't joyful necessarily. A lot of being alive is about logistics. It's about getting from point A to point B. It's about maintaining your body and your body functions. And, it doesn't necessarily bring you joy every time, but it's just something you do. It's just something you kind of have to do, like brush your teeth, floss your teeth, do the laundry, wash your dishes, clean the house. I'll tell you, I'll be frank with you, cleaning the house Does it always bring me joy? And that's okay. Not everything in life has to be a peak experience. And, having a peak experience, is a wonderful part of being alive. And I encourage everyone to have as many peak experiences as they possibly can. But deciding only to perform activities that provide or have the possibility of providing a peak experience seems a little odd to me. Life is filled with duties and obligations. You've made commitments with others, and sometimes it's difficult to follow through with those commitments, particularly when you recognize how things change, right? Things aren't the same day to day. In fact, when you make a commitment with someone, you might have a lot of energy and maybe a lot of confidence. And then when the time comes to actually follow through on that commitment, you might have a lot less energy and a lot less confidence. And so there's always these shifting sands of time and circumstance. And, it's important to do the best you can. And it's important to notify others when, say, you're not going to be following through with your commitment. Just to let them know so they can make the adjustments they need to make on their ends. That's entirely okay. It's entirely okay and legitimate to let people know that you're going to be changing plans. That's part of, living life and sort of adjusting to the shifting sands of life. And these are things that we all have to do. Things often don't follow or unfold according to our original plans. There's often a plan B or a plan C that makes things happen. So, anyway, thanks for the material, Mary. But I'm afraid I'm going to have to respectfully disagree with the ideas presented in your passage today, both of them. But it made for good conversation, right? Absolutely. So, that touches on something that has been on my mind lately. And it has to do about the difference between thoughts and actions and how under control they are. What is under our power to change as humans? Do we have the power to change our thinking? Do we have the power to change how we act and how we behave? And what part of us is easier to change? What part of us is easier to control? Is it easier to control our thoughts, or is it easier to control our behavior? And I've been thinking about this lately, and right now I'm leaning toward this idea that it's easier to control our behavior than it is to control our thoughts. Yep. I used to and am still quite interested in self-development and pursuit of happiness and peace. And a lot of that involves thinking about thoughts, changing thoughts, getting sort of appreciating different perspectives about the world. And also making an effort to change one's thoughts, to change the meaning one has about aspects of the external world. And what I'm finding is that is really challenging. It's actually not easy. Once a meaning has been established, what I'm finding is that once a meaning has been established in your mind, it's really hard to change that meaning. It's kind of sticky in the sense that, you attach a certain event with a certain meaning. And it's really hard to unstick the meaning to that event and change the meaning to a different one. It's not easy. And I'm really beginning to realize this as I've grown older and more mature. And, I'm also thinking that the human brain, I think, more naturally is like a parallel computer, and it can hold many different meanings at the same time. And I think this is what's really going on. I think that it's not like events in our lives, when we assign meaning to them, we either assign meaning or don't. Or we can switch out one meaning for another. I think what's going on here is we've got different perspectives that we are holding simultaneously. And when we change the meaning, what we're doing is emphasizing one meaning over another. We're giving a little bit more energy and attention to one meaning or another, and the original meanings stay in place. There's no choice but for them to stay in place. And really, we change meanings about events by emphasizing one meaning or another. And that events have multiple meanings in our minds. Events have multiple meanings, and that is a normal, natural condition. The multiple meanings that our minds assigns to events. And what is the dominant meaning that we sort of apprehend? That meaning is the meaning that we spend the most time considering, the most energy considering. So I don't think that meaning can be changed easily. Meanings can be emphasized, and there might be more or less attention on a meaning, but I don't think meanings can change radically. So that's my current perspective now in terms of control of thoughts. Now, when it comes to control of actions, I am very impressed with how detailed we can change our behavior in ways, and how effectively and how quickly we can change our behavior. Now, this, I think, is where the opportunity lies. When it comes to thinking, I was just saying that we can change the emphasis of one thought over another. But when it comes to behavior, I think that we can completely extinguish behavior if we want. We can also add behaviors. And I think this is really powerful. This ability to extinguish or add behaviors at a moment's notice is a really powerful skill. And I think it's a gift that we all have and maybe just don't appreciate as much as we ought to. So, now why would that make a difference? Well, basically life is made up of what we do, right? We're lying down, we're seated, we're standing in various patterns, right? In order to manage our lives. And, there's a lot of power in how we interact with the world, how we can sort of pull together resources and create assets and satisfy our needs through our behavior. Now, we can also satisfy our needs through changing our thoughts, through emphasizing one thought or another. But satisfying our needs through thinking differently is a lot more challenging than just changing our behavior. changing our behavior can result in significant increases in resources and our ability to meet needs. Whereas changing our thoughts, I think, can only create moderate improvements in resources and moderate improvements in how well we meet our needs. So what's going on here for me philosophically is this big shift, right? I'm shifting from a focus on thoughts as a way to meet needs to a focus on behavior as a way to meet needs, because I think that if focusing on behavior is a more efficient use of my time. Focusing on thoughts, I think, is quite helpful in terms of making modest improvements for the satisfaction of needs. And but I think having these realizations is really important. Certainly it requires a balance, right? You can't be 100% behavior or 100% thoughts. There's definitely a balance in play, and different contexts might require different approaches. One might be more of a thought-centric way to meet needs. Another might be more of a behavior-centric way to meet needs. And so what's happening to me now is I'm becoming a little more strategic in how I choose to meet my needs. And maybe I'm just appreciating how easy it is to meet needs when you change your behavior. So anyway, there's delving into some of my thinking, my philosophical thinking about psychology. All right, so let's answer to some questions here in my Kindle book, and maybe I'll give you some insight into my life, huh? All right. So we were talking about swearing, and I answered question 117, do you enjoy or tolerate swearing? And I said no. Question number 118, if so, what is your favorite word? My favorite word. I don't have a favorite word. Question 119, did you ever get in trouble for swearing? And I think I probably did when I was a kid. And I think that being in trouble consisted mainly of just some scolding. I came from a family that was raised pretty Christian, and so no one in my family did a lot of swearing. No one did. And I was never around people who did a lot of it anyway. So here's question number 120. It asks, how much do you usually sleep? There's like oh, that is really nice. I'm going to close this door. All right. Because it's a little bit loud. Alrighty. So as I do some adjustments here, how much do I usually sleep? Well, lately I've been sleeping about 6 or 7 hours a night. And if I'm feeling really sleepy, then I might sleep 8 hours a night. But, probably about 7 hours of sleep is a pretty good night's rest for me. Recently, I've been taking magnesium in the evenings before I go to sleep, and that has been a game changer. I'm really sleeping a lot better, a lot more deeply than I ever have, I think, for years, even decades. And that magnesium has been a real game changer. I'm definitely feeling more relaxed when I go to bed and more sleepy, so I'm really happy about that. There was a time when I was not getting as much sleep as I'd like for many years, and I'll tell you, this magnesium has really helped me. I'm feeling a lot more relaxed, getting a lot more sleep, and I'm glad for it. Okay. So the next question is, how long have you gone without any sleep? Well, I think if there was a heyday in my time when I didn't get a lot of sleep, periods of time when I didn't get a lot of sleep, it would be during my college years when I was going to the University of New Mexico or New Mexico Tech in Socorro. That's the New Mexico School of Mining and Technology in Socorro, New Mexico, where I went to college for a couple of years. Now, how long? I don't know if I can remember that. It was probably no longer than one night's rest. Maybe I tried to go for a full 2 nights rest without sleep, but I'm pretty sure I never did make it. It's just the reality. Human brains have ways of resting when they need to rest. Yeah, and they basically shut down the body. So it's not like willpower plays such a great role, because I think when you're really, really tired, your willpower, that strength begins to erode pretty considerably. Certainly after you've lost a full night's rest. So my guess is that I've only really lost at any one time one full night's rest. And that's not something I do today. Even if I'm really excitable, I'll still get 1 or 2 hours of rest a night. Just because that's what the brain does. It shuts itself down if it doesn't get enough sleep, that's for sure. So question number 122, do you have any bodily scars? And yeah, I do have a bodily scar. In fact, you could probably see it right now. There it is. There's one. That scar, I'll tell you the story of it. This scar was created by a knife that entered my cheek. So the story goes like this. I was just a child, probably maybe a little less old than a toddler, or about a toddler's age. And I believe I was like in the kitchen dining room when I was a boy. My mom, I believe, was in the kitchen preparing a meal or something. And I was in a high chair. And while sitting in the high chair, I guess I got restless. I got up and I began to crawl out of my high chair, and I reached for a knife that just happened to be on the kitchen counter. I think it was just a standard steak knife. And I went for it. I reached it. As I reached for it, I lost my balance. And I grabbed the knife firmly in my fist. And I also as I went down on the floor in slow motion, as I went down on the floor, I think I braced my fall with my arm, with the knife still in my hand, and my head sort of rested on the knife, and the knife went in to my cheek right here. I don't think the blade went all the way through, but it did make a significant bite into my cheek. And I've been looking at it carefully, and I can see that there, or at least are stitches. There are marks where there were stitches there. So yeah, I had a knife go into my cheek here. And I can only imagine how my mom might have responded upon seeing her child not only just fall out of the high chair, but fall out of the high chair with a knife in his hand. And not only that, but watch as the blade pierced the the head of her child. Oh my gosh. What that would have freaked me out as a parent, and I'm sure my mom was totally freaked. So but I made my way to it's kind of funny as I am relating the story to you. in my mind, I'm coming up with memories. I think I can actually remember having which is it's amazing to me that these memories are even coming forward. I think I can remember having stitches here on the side of my head. These vague memories are popping up. Now, I don't know if this is self-induced, but I'm getting some recall of memories of feeling stitches in my cheek. So I am happy to say that I don't remember feeling any pain relating to having this knife blade in my head. So anyway, wow, I'm really pleased to have gotten a sense of those memories. Wow, I didn't even know that those memories were back in there. So anyway, yeah. Now, do I have any other scars? Yeah, I sure do. I've got some scars here on my arm, on my forearm. You see, when I was a kid, I called myself a feral child. You know, like a lot of kids my age growing up, we did a lot of running and playing outdoors. And there was a farming community in Taos, New Mexico, where I grew up. And so there were lots of agricultural fields that were protected from trespassing with barbed wire fences. And of course, in order to go from field to field, I had to squeeze in between the barbed wire fence. And sometimes I was more or less successful because those barbs would catch on my clothes, right? They'd catch on my shirt, they'd catch on my pants. And I had a lot of episodes, many episodes where I can remember hearing the sound of my clothes ripping because the barbs would catch my clothing and would rip them. Well, I remember one time, and I remember almost exactly where it happened. I was moving from our property to another farmer's property through the barbed wire fence, and as I was sort of leaving the fence, I pulled my arm out and across an actual barb, which stuck me here, and it was actually a pretty deep gash. I never did get stitches on it, but here, so this is, you probably can't see it at all, but there is a scar that starts about here, and it's probably about 3 or 4 inches long, and it probably ends about right here. But I remember the scar went, I mean, the cut went, way up into here, but it was just deepest here, and I guess it healed pretty well over here. But yeah, I just drew my arm. What I did is what you do is when you go through barbed wire fences, you sort of open up the barbed wire, and then you squeeze your body in and over, and then you pull your arms out, and I got gashed by the barbed wire, by the barb, which is just like iron, just like some steel that was pretty rusty. Rusty barbs on a barbed wire fence. So that's another scar. I'm trying to think, do I have any other scars? Yeah, I got a scar, I think, back here when I had some skin taken off by a dermatologist. I try to go to the dermatologist like once a year to get checked out for skin cancer. And of course, they take samples of some of the skin tissues, right, to get cultures and examinations. Let's see, do I have any other scars? What I do have on the side of my hips are growth stretch marks relating to my growing pains, growing spurts when I was a teenager. I remember sort of being in real pain from my joints and skin and everything growing when I was, I guess, 11, 12, 13 years old. And the rapidity of my growth shows up in these stretch marks I've got on my skin along my upper legs. And I don't know if you've got something similar, but I wouldn't call those scars necessarily, but I think they probably are. They're called stretch marks. Any other blemishes besides that? Oh, there is one. I have yet another scar. Let's see, which finger is it? I think it's probably this one, but I cannot actually see it right now at the moment. So when I was a kid, my dad bought me like a carpenter play kit, a set of toys that mimicked carpentry toys. Like there was a saw, a metal saw with blades, and then there was with a blade, and then there was also a screwdriver and a hammer, and probably a wrench, all in this nice little form factor where there was a nice little box, like a toolbox, where I could carry it around. And let me tell you, I love that. I love that little toy box thing. Those toy tools. And I remember using them. I'll tell you, I wasn't always the smartest kid using those tools. I think I was on the slide. I had a slide in my backyard, swing set. And I think I was on the swing set and I was cutting wood, right? Maybe at the top of the slide, I'm guessing. Cutting wood at the top of the slide with a handsaw. Going back and forth, right? Well, of course, the blade jumps for whatever reason. And the saw blade jumped right onto my thumb. And I drew the saw back and, opened up my skin here on my thumb. And so I've got a scar. I might have been maybe 5 years old when that happened. So I vividly remember that happening. And I just basically did it to myself. Tools are risky to use sometimes. They can cause harm. Just like, they can rip metal or wood. They can just as easily or more easily rip skin and bone. So I did that to myself when I was just a kid. Zip, zip. So I think that pretty much covers all the scars that I have. And so I've got the facial scar, I've got the one on my forearm from the barbed wire fence, and then I've got the one on my thumb. And then I've got some dermatology scars, right? No big deal. Got to check all those moles, right? For skin cancer. Okay, next slide. What did you always want to be as an adult? Well, I can tell you, when I was a kid, I did have an idea of what I wanted to do when I grew up. In fact, I had 3 main ideas, and I'll share them with you. Number 1, I wanted to be a postman. Was that it? Yeah, I think I wanted to be a mailman. Number 2, I wanted to be a grocery bag packer at the grocery store. And number 3, I wanted to be a martial artist. These were the 3 professions that I wanted to be when I was a kid. Now I'm talking about when I was like 10 or 11 years old. These are ideas I had about what my ideal future would be like as an adult. And of course, I was just using information that I happened to have available to me. At the time, my Uncle John was working in a grocery store packing groceries. And I looked up to my Uncle John. That is John Gibson. And so I wanted to do everything that he wanted to do. And since he was working at a grocery store packing grocery bags, I wanted to do that too. And for me, that was a feasible job that I could do as an 11-year-old, right? Something that I could look forward to doing. Another thing, of course, was being a mailman. I would see mailmen walking by, and to me, that sounded like an amazing job, to be outdoors and to just, that's just a lot about what I did. Did a lot of exploring, and what better job could there be but being a mailman? And then another thing, martial arts. I spent a big part of my time pretending that I was a martial arts artist, someone who does karate or judo. I'd spend many hours like honing my karate chops and breaking boards and, I don't know, kicking trees and stuff like that. Breaking branches and breaking wood, just like a karate expert does, a black belt, right? And I figured that would be a suitable goal for me to tackle as an adult. It's funny how my life did not turn out at all like any of those ideas. And I never did have any kind of job similar to any of those jobs that I mentioned. So now I know that's not the full question. The full question is, what did you always want to be as an adult? I don't know. I'm guessing if was a profession that suits me the best, it probably would be a psychotherapist. That might be one profession that suits me the best. Another profession would be a professional student. I love going to school, and I love learning, and I love being in school, and I love being in the libraries, and I love being with students and with teachers. And for me, that's a place where I thrive. So being a professional student, if there even is such a thing as that, which I believe there is, that is definitely something I would do. So, I would guess that those two professions are what might be my true heart's desire. If I were to really, really describe to you what I really want to do, it would be practicing psychology in some way. And whether it's being like a coach or a therapist, or being a professional full-time student. I'm pretty close. I'm taking 2 or 3 classes this semester. So I'm a part-time student right now. And I intend to always be a part-time student. I don't really ever see a time in the future when I could be a full-time student unless I win the lottery or something like that. I'd have to win the jackpot. If I did win the lottery, that would actually be quite a feasible outcome for me having won the lottery. There's a lot of people who do a lot of traveling and they go to fancy restaurants once they win the lottery, and I don't know, they buy fancy cars and buy a big house, and but I don't think I would do much of anything like that. I mean, I might do a little bit of that, but I might just go to Yale and enroll in Yale Law School or something like that, or go to Harvard, or even here, maybe go to a private school like Stanford if I could get accepted, and just take classes at Stanford. To me, that would be amazing. I mean, or maybe even go to San Francisco Medical School and train to become a medical doctor. Golly. Now that would be something that I could get into. So I'm guessing I'd do something similar to that if I ever won the lottery. The thing is, I am already doing stuff similar to that. I mean, I'm a part-time student now. And I think what I'd probably do is just go to a nicer school, like a bigger school, like a university, like a UC Santa Barbara or something like that, and I'd probably take more classes, things like that. But I think my life would be pretty much the same. I'd probably just live in the dorms. And maybe not. I'd probably live in a nicer place, in a nicer place nearby. I'd probably buy some kind of condo nearby. And to me, and then I'd probably travel on by spring, fall, and summer breaks. That's if I had $1 billion. Yeah, I can see something like that happening. You know, there's a lot of learning that I could do just traveling. I could learn other languages. Recently, I've been desiring to learn a different language like Spanish or French or German. And I've really been thinking about perhaps traveling to a different country and just sort of being there for 1 or 2 or 3 months to learn the language. Maybe living with a local family. To me, that sounds interesting. Anyway. What did you always want to be as an adult? Okay. Okay, question number 124. Did such a dream come true? Well, no. I've touched on this briefly. Yeah, none of those ideas really came to be. There are practical considerations. Being a full-time student is tough on the pocketbook. Honestly, I don't know how people do it. I certainly would have to, I don't think I'd be able to do it. I don't know, maybe I could. No, I don't think I'd be able to do it. Some dreams are just unworkable. Next question. Question number 126. Well, here we go. Let me just address that. I did say that some dreams are unworkable. And that is true if it comes to sort of working out a dream in full. But what I've managed to do is I've managed to work out the dream partially. And you know what? That is very satisfying. Many of my friends tend to be psychotherapists, and I talk with them on a regular basis about psychology and communication, things that are really important to me. So I've got that component in my life. It exists. And then I've got the learning component too. I'm a part-time student now. And so I've got that dream. So in a way, both dreams have been satisfied. I do psychology and I'm a full-time student, or I'm a part-time student. So I have managed to integrate my dream jobs into my current life. There you go. So that's called satisfaction. It's called optimizing your life. And I've been able to successfully do that. Okay, so question number 125. Are you still pursuing this dream or goal? Well, and the answer is I've already met that dream. I do a lot of psychology. I still read a lot of psychology texts. And I'm going to school regularly, getting good grades, doing a lot of studying. In fact, even today, I might study for a good 2 or 3 hours. Today's Saturday. Yeah, I've got some homework to do. So that's in my plan today, is to do 2 or 3 hours worth of studying for class. And you know what? That's good. I'm looking forward to it. To me, that's enjoyable. Okay, so question number 126. If anything, what would you change about yourself? That's a good question. Well, what would I change about myself? That's kind of a really tough question. I've got some ideas, of course. I've got personal goals that I'm working on. For example, I work out in the gym. I'm doing some weightlifting. I like to gain a few more pounds of muscle mass. I'd like to lose maybe 1 or 2 pounds of fat mass, which is not a lot, by the way. Yeah. So I'd like to develop habits, better habits for working out. and just to improve my diet as much as I can. So, you know, those are two things I'd change about myself. Now, here's the thing. I don't necessarily know how to quite do that. I'm still working it out, right? I'm just trying to add these additional components into my life, like working out more. How can I fit that in? I think that there is some knowledge that I'm lacking in terms of nutrition, human nutrition. How can I maximize my nutrition and get me where I want to be in terms of my muscle mass and fat mass, my body composition, right? So I've got some gaps in knowledge, and I'm trying to fit some things into my schedule. So I'd like to change in those respects. Other things, what else would I like to change about myself? Well, I'd like to become more fashionable. I'd like to dress well. I think also too, I'd like to become more courageous, more authentic in my relationships with other people. I'd like to derive more joy out of my daily life. you know, I think, these are desires that regular people have. They pretty much all have these same desires. Surprise, surprise, I've got the same ones. I'd like to make more money. That would be nice. I'd like to have a little bit less stress at work. But really, let me tell you, I do my work very competently, and so I think probably the amount of stress I have is just fine for enabling that. Okay, what is next? Question number 127. Do you prefer short or long hair? So I don't know if you've been noticing, if you've been following me over the last 2 months or so. I have been trying to get longer hair. So my hair has pretty much always been short ever since I was a kid, and I'm changing things up a little bit. I'm letting my hair grow longer, and I'm really liking the results. I'm liking the way it looks, I'm liking the way it feels, and I'm really curious to see how even growing the hair that I have out now a little bit more will change my look, will change my appearance, and I think it'll be good for me and flattering for my appearance. And so I guess I have had short hair in the past, and right now I'm preferring long hair in different places, and I'm working on that right now. So I've got some long-term goals about what my hair will look like in the future, so we'll see. Well, anyway, I think I'm going to wrap this up, and I just want to mention that I really appreciate the time that you took to listen to what I had to say during this period. I appreciate the willingness that you have to connect with me in this way, and I just want to say that I value our relationship, and that I love you and I cherish you. I also honor and respect you, and I give you the freedom to take actions and make decisions in a way that are self-determining. I want to see you determine your own life and be the captain of your own ship. And if possible, along the way, I wonder if you'd allow me to help enable you to accomplish the goals that I know that you can accomplish, and develop the virtues and attitudes that will serve you well as an adult in the future. And, just want you to know that I'm a part of your life, and I'm willing to be courageous and tender and vulnerable and just really squeeze as much joy and enjoyment out of our relationship as possible. I love you, girl. Bye bye.